Zero, Papa Kilo Sierra. Contact.
Alpha Echo Zero, Hotel Lima.
Alpha Echo Zero, Hotel Lima. Thank you. 59200.
59 Minnesota.
Thank you. Japan Zero, Papa Kilo Sugar.
When people get involved in a hobby, they don't often ask, does my hobby require a license? Certainly not, if you are taking up painting, woodwork, or even knitting. But amateur radio differs, in that amateur radio operators are using radio frequencies for various activities over long distances. Amateur radio is a hobby regulated by the federal government to protect amateur radio operators and the public. This may sound intimidating. What many people fail to realize is this: amateur radio is not rocket science, just a lot more fun. So I don't confuse anyone, I need to let you know, amateur radio is often referred to by its nickname, ham radio. Amateur radio operators are licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC determines the minimum requirements for obtaining an amateur radio license. The FCC sets up and maintains frequency bands, provides licensing standards for amateur radio operators, as well as repeaters, and ensures appropriate and fair use of amateur radio frequencies. The FCC can sanction amateur radio operators who violate FCC rules and regulations. The FCC can also lodge enforcement action against individuals and communities who interfere with amateur radio operators. As a long-time amateur radio license instructor, I have found that getting a license, for the vast majority of students, is an easy process. Most individuals looking to get into amateur radio will pass the exam with approximately 20 to 25 hours of studying. Please note that no electronic background or experience with radios is required. In this video, I will be outlining the process for getting a license and some of the strategies that will lead to success. But before I get all carried away, let's start with the technical details you need to know about the license. There are 3 licenses available in amateur radio. They are the technician, the general, and the amateur extra class license. Operators must pass the tests in order. Each license class gives the operator more frequency band privileges. Once one license is achieved, you are immediately eligible to take the next license exam. I have seen individuals take exams for 2 or 3 license levels in one exam session. Most of these are people in the electronics field already. For the individual with no electrical background or experience, just focus on the technician exam and go from there. I know from my own experience. I had no knowledge of electronics when I started out seeking an amateur radio license. The only thing I heard when I was growing up was, don't play with electricity, cause it will hurt you. So, think of it this way. The technician license is where people begin the journey into amateur radio. This license provides the operator with frequency bands that are used for local calls. These frequencies have a very limited range, and the radio wave has a rapid drop-off rate. The exception is when an operator uses a digital radio hooked up to a computer. It also pertains to the use of CW. The FCC allows some use of CW on several high-frequency bands by technician license holders. CW is another name for Morse code. Being locally based in the beginning has some perks. It provides the newly licensed operator the opportunity to establish contact with local operators individually or through repeater nets. For the beginner operator, it also aids in learning the process and rhythm of setting up and using the radio. It's easier to make contacts in a more relaxed fashion. It is a great way to get to know local operators and to participate in local club and public service opportunities. It is important to note, amateur radio operators cannot be paid for amateur radio use. In light of that, I want to say, public service activities are valuable experiences for operators. Participating in setting up and running a radio communications network for a charity event is an important learning experience. Every bit of knowledge and experience gained by the technician operator helps in making the jump to a general license and the high-frequency experience. It is also a great way to find a mentor. In amateur radio, we call them Elmers. And even if you don't find an Elmer, amateur radio operators are always willing to help. This is not a competitive hobby, unless someone gets into radio contests. An exciting part of amateur radio is that it can be enjoyed by people of all ages. There is no minimum age requirement for getting a license. If you can pass the test, you get the license. This makes amateur radio a great family hobby. I tell people, if you're scared of taking the license exam, don't be surprised if in your exam session, you're seated near a 12-year-old. That'll wake you right up. Are you smarter than a 12-year-old? My kids tell me I'm not. The technician exam is simply a tool to demonstrate basic competency over amateur radio concepts. The technician license is truly designed for beginners. There are a number of different companies and organizations that have produced technician license manuals. American Radio Relay League is one such organization. As a member, I use the ARRL Technician Exam Manual for my classes. Along with the study manual, ARRL has also developed a computer-based study platform to give students the opportunity to take an unlimited number of practice exams. This platform uses actual questions with the answer positions randomly drawn from the question pool. The exam question pool changes slightly every 4 years. The manuals can be purchased online from many sellers. When purchasing a manual, make sure you are using a current testing manual. All the basic concepts needed to pass the exam are fully covered in the manual. What I ask my students to do is to relax and enjoy the learning process. When you get your license, this becomes your license to learn. Amateur radio operators are practicing the art and science of amateur radio. After an individual is licensed and starts to set up a station, many of the concepts encountered in the technician license manual will begin to make sense and fall into place. The technician license is an exam consisting of 35 multiple-choice questions. It is not timed. It usually takes students less than half an hour to complete the exam. A person can miss 9 questions and still pass. FCC rules require that the question pool must contain at least 10 times the number of questions required for a single examination and is publicly published. The exam questions are randomly pulled from the question pool. The questions have 4 choices. 2 answers are completely wrong, and 2 answers are a possibility. Make sure to choose the right one. When you take the exam, you will need proper identification and a federal registration number. Don't panic. The FRN is easy to get. You can do it by computer in the comfort of your own home. The FRN is necessary so your license can be published in the federal database. An operator may not use their license until their name and call sign are published in the federal database. Operators can go to the database to print a copy of the license at any time. When your license is first approved, you will be sent an email link that will take you directly to the page. When printed, the license will be marked official copy. This is because the official license is in the federal database. There is a small fee for the examination and a small fee for the license application. Once the student passes the exam, application can be made for the license. Once the operator receives the license, it will have a call sign. Your call sign is your identifier when using a radio. Amateur radio does not use handles or nicknames, as in CB radio. The amateur radio license is good for 10 years. Even if you test up to a higher license, your renewal date will be every 10 years from when your first license was issued. Your license must be displayed at the location of your home station. There will also be a pocket license attached, so you can identify yourself when operating in a vehicle or out in the field. You must present your license to law enforcement or public officials when asked. When operating in the community, a license holder may use an amateur radio anywhere on public property. That means any public property where an individual is legally entitled to be. Even though the FCC has bestowed these privileges on the license holder, respect and common sense should prevail. Let me give you an example. When going to a state park to participate in a Parks on the Air weekend, I always check in at the ranger station. I inform them I will be working the radio in the park. What I can say is, the park officials I have encountered are always professional, courteous, and accommodating. In return, it's courteous to inform park officials about amateur radio activities occurring in the park. This is helpful to them if a park guest is concerned about what the operator is doing and contacts a park official. Because operators working in public attract attention, I am always ready to answer questions and provide information about amateur radio. It's just good public relations for the hobby of amateur radio. Let's change the direction of this discussion to the exam manual. The exam manual is designed to provide you with an understanding of the basic concepts related to the technician license exam. The first thing I want to point out is, the learning model is based on repetition and memorization. So here you have a choice to make. You can thoroughly learn and understand every concept presented and solve all math equations, or you can, through reading and repetition, learn and memorize the answers to the questions related to each concept. Please understand that I am not being dismissive of the concepts. My position here is simple. Is the focus on getting a license so you can get involved in the hobby of amateur radio? Or is the focus on gaining all the knowledge available so you can become an expert and build a radio? Answering these questions will determine how deep a person wants to go with the information. As people embark on this process, they would do well by going easy on themselves. The task at hand is to learn the basic concepts necessary to get an amateur radio operator license. All of this without being able to use a radio. As I said before, the concepts will begin to fall into place as operators set up a station. Remember, an amateur radio license is a license to learn. And yes, please study the book. The ARRL platform has a chapter review exam for each unit in the book. This allows the student to review what they have read by taking license exam questions from a chapter. It is helpful to approach the information in small units. This will help decrease the feelings of being overwhelmed by the material. This is most important for students with little or no background in electronics. After a student feels they have mastered the information contained in a chapter, the student can proceed to the next chapter of the book. Once all the chapters are completed, the student can move on to the practice exams. The ARRL platform gives an actual score for each exam taken. There is no limit on the number of exams someone takes. The practice exams are randomly generated, just as with the actual FCC exam. I tell my students, do not study using the questions in the back of our exam manual. Those questions have answers in a fixed position. On the actual exam, the questions are drawn from a question pool randomly, and the answers are positioned randomly. So memorizing the alphabet doesn't help. Again, this is why the computer platforms are so helpful. Here is an important observation I need to share. When I survey students about questions they missed on the exam, students report they missed obvious questions because they did not fully read the question. They read part of the question and think, oh yeah, I know this one. The exam can present questions as a negative or a positive, as well as adding, subtracting, or changing one simple term that changes the answer choice. Take your time, make sure to read the whole question and all the possible answers, making sure to read slowly. When reviewing a practice exam that has been scored on the computer platform, only read the question missed and the right answer. Think about what I am saying. When scrolling through a completed practice exam, read the question missed and the correct answer only. Do not put wrong answers in your head. Instructors noticed that when a student takes the actual FCC exam, a student may begin to second-guess themselves on even easy questions. Volunteer examiners observed students change a right answer to a wrong answer. This is based on students' own reports. Amateur radio license testing is provided in many communities by volunteer examiners. Volunteer examiners are amateur radio operators who are certified by a VC. ARRL is one of the largest VC organizations. 3 volunteer examiners independently score the completed exam and determine if the individual passed or failed. Each VE then signs their name and license on a form which documents the results. The individual receives a copy of the examination results. All the exam materials are then forwarded to the VC organization for final review. Results are then submitted to the FCC. Sound complicated? It isn't really. VCs working with the FCC have developed a streamlined system. Now, don't get all up in your anxiety. Get excited about the thought of taking the exam. Think positively. When seeking out a test site, know that many ham radio clubs provide technician license classes and have an exam program or are in contact with testing groups. The quickest way to find exam dates and sites is to contact a local area ham radio club using the internet. ARRL has an exam locator on their website. Problem with it is, many clubs do not use it to advertise exam sites and dates. It may be helpful though. In my rural area, we have 6 clubs within a 90-mile radius of my community. In less populated rural areas, it may require a drive. It's well worth the gas and time. My hope is that this video has helped you understand the exam process for the Technician Amateur Radio License. I also hope you were encouraged to pursue a license as an amateur radio operator. We would love to have you join the ham radio family. We are trying to change the world one call at a time, all while having fun. The question I have is, will you answer the call?
You're working right now. KG6 YBD. Where are you located? What's your name?